Hi, I'm Jürgen Teichert, and this is Wolfpack Chats podcast.
Oh,
Today I've got with me Steven van Wyk from the Strategic Aim. He's a digital marketing strategist, AI strategist, and he's flown all the way from Maastricht. So, for a limited time only in Namibia.
I'm so happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
It's a big pleasure.
Yeah.
Excited to have you here. So, Stephen, starting off lighthearted, when you hear the word strategy in a digital marketing context, what does that ring a bell for you? Like, how would you describe that?
I think for me, strategy is this meeting point between creativity and data, because I think that, the real gift of digital marketing is that it's so trackable. We can see the impact we're having. It's like, okay, we did this thing and we got this many clicks, or we got this many conversions. So there's definitely this point of data. But I think that where the strategy comes in is that we're saying, what do we do with that data, or how do we act on that? Or, so it's like, okay, we're doing really well here, but now how can we need a new campaign message that leverages what we found through the data. And that's where I think the creativity meets the data.
Would you say strategy is very much like a framework?
I think that I think that there's definitely frameworks for strategy, but the more I go, uh, like the more experience I get over time, the more I realize you sometimes it's just cases where it's more intuition, more gut feeling, and sometimes it's actually about researching a specific strategic framework. Like for instance, I've worked a lot in medical spaces and with scientists, and it's a completely different game. Like it's very different than selling something in the retail space. So you've got to actually look at like what are the approaches to marketing to scientists, what types of things do they, because there are studies on that, but it's different than marketing trying to sell shoes to someone online. They're very different. So I think there are frameworks and they're useful, but I think you've also got to look at the case at hand.
Now, that reminds me of a very interesting story. We once had, or I once heard a story from our copywriter, Frida, and she said that her husband, which is also my brother,
Okay.
he works for a company that sells software for developers. So it's like
Mm,
coding that helps you code,
mm-hmm,
basically. And they said their strategy at the end of the day, they tried almost everything. And the weirdest thing that worked was they would go on Reddit forums and they would answer from personal
mm,
profiles complex questions that their software solution solves. So
mm,
at the end of the day, it's this like uh, almost you're not branding it, but it's this personal account coming answering this question,
mm-hmm.
saying like, oh, but this problem you're facing, this is what I use to solve it,
Yeah.
and then they saw so much success from that. So it shows you like strategy is very sometimes intuition based, very you have to
Yeah.
test it.
So my undergrad was in social science, and it's almost like anthropology, because it's like you have to understand what the culture is that you're dealing with. Like in that case, you're dealing with developers. Where do they hang out? Who do they trust? Reddit comments. It's
Not
like
on Facebook.
they're not on Facebook, and they're also like, it's like me. I'm immune to ads. I scroll
Yeah.
past ads, but sometimes I see like content marketing or other things like get me, and I'm like, oh, I didn't realize I was watching an ad, and I'm like, that's brilliant. They found a way to cut through to me, and the developers on Reddit is like the prime example. It's not cookie cutter, per client, giving them a
Mm,
Facebook ad.
yeah. Speaking about cookie cutter strategy, so with large corporates now,
Hmm.
they barely move without strategy. Like before anything happens, there needs to be strategy and there needs to be all these things in place. That can be a bit debilitating for an entrepreneur on the outside. Like, oh, do I really need to have all this strategy to start out? Do I really need to have this well laid out plan, or should I just start? Like, what's your opinion on small business strategy slash startup entrepreneurs?
Yeah, I mean, I've done like a lot of work with entrepreneurs and small businesses, and I think that again, it's less about like these big brand strategies like you would do with a corporate where, it's so much about the positioning and the concept or whatever, and it's much more about um, like what's a checklist for your type of business. And again, it's like a little bit different depending on the type of business, but I think it's like if you just think on a sort of a checklist basis, okay, how do you get clients? They phone you. Okay, how are we going to create awareness? How are we going to engage with the people? And how are we going to mostly convert them? And for most business types, uh, there's pretty much standard things, that give us those results. Like because you're a startup, you have to find ways to get awareness. You have to get your name out there. So what can you do that suits your type of business? Again, like you have to engage with customers. Is that over WhatsApp? Is it over email? Where do your people like to engage? That's, you have to have that two-way thing. And then ultimately, where you convert is usually through Google Ads. I'd say like 80% of the time, it's
I
Google
preach
Ads.
it all the time. Your
It's, yeah,
highest intent traffic.
your highest intent traffic at the end of the day is going to be that. There will be a shift where we'll have to think about ask engine optimization, or whatever people are calling it now, for how do we show up in search in like ChatGPT results. So that's something that I'm very much like trying to figure out, because that's still so new. But I think that will change the game there. But that's kind of derailing from your question. But
No,
yeah.
but now you got me derailed as well because I recently started thinking about social search as well. Like the newer
Mm.
generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, they're doing social search. So it's not just AI search, it's looking for restaurants near me on Instagram or on TikTok.
TikTok is
So,
how I learn how to like cook meals. I mean, I'm not even Gen Z, but I use TikTok where I'm like, how do I cook a lasagna, And like, I think that used to just be the domain of Google and YouTube, but like you say, social search is huge. That's actually how we live our lives. Definitely me, and I think a lot of people out there. And I think that that's a huge opportunity that's missed by a lot of small businesses. Is that actually if you create content like video content that's answering the questions that people are asking, you in the long run, you're not just creating useful content, but you will also rank. And so I think
mm,
that's a really big opportunity uh, for a lot of people.
yeah, for those smaller business owners out there, this was just one of the best tips ever is that if you need content, plan, start, and you don't know what to post, start by just looking at your most frequently asked questions. Look at what the problems are your clients are having and just address them in a video.
And there's so many free tools that also give you that information.
Mm.
I think of Answer the Public. That's a great one from, is it Neil Patel, the like world's greatest SEO guru, certainly the most famous one. He's got that platform, and you get a certain number of free searches a day, a week, something like that. But you basically put in the area, so Namibia or South Africa, and then you put the broad question, like say we're trying to sell shoes, and you can say, where's the best place to get shoes in Namibia? And then it'll give you all of the top related searches to that. So, where can I buy shoes online in Namibia? Blah, 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 blah. And if you create content that's answering those questions, then that's going to help you in an organic sense and in a use value sense, because you're actually going to give people the information that they want.
Yeah, I agree. So, getting back to the strategy side of small businesses, you mentioned there's a few things that each business has to have somewhat in place. Can you
Hmm.
can you go through that mini checklist of yours
So yeah, I think the mini checklist, if we go like classical
to make sales? Like
to
it's
make
not just
sales.
awareness.
Well, I
We're a
think
small business. We need money right now. We need cash flow.
I think that even to get cash flow, you need awareness, because if there's no people don't know that you exist, they can't even search for you.
Yeah.
So I think that there is that aspect that you have to somehow be doing, and whether that is you're literally, putting up posters with a QR code to get people to your Facebook page, whatever you're going to do, however low budget, or maybe you have more budget to spend on actually putting paid media behind ads, you got to do something so that people know who you are. So yeah, you can think of whatever tactics suit your budget and your audience. And I mean, a lot of the time when you start a business, you start with your friends and family, and you send them a WhatsApp flyer, and you say,
Mm.
support my business, spread this flyer around. So that's also awareness, But you just have to think in that way, because if people don't know that you exist and they don't know what you offer, how are they ever going to figure it out? So I think that's one piece. I always think like Google Business Profile, that's just like a no-brainer. You know, if you have a physical location, even if you don't, um, the fact that people can find you on a map, and that's like the first key part of SEO is having a Google business listing. And there's so much you can do with that in terms of updating content there for free, which sends good signals to Google, you know, to rank you higher. That you can start getting customer reviews there. All of that stuff is really great. Like it's such a great free platform. And then in time, you can also take your Google reviews, you can turn that into social media content. You can link it to your Google ad account and then actually get your Google Maps listing higher in search results. So that's like a no-brainer. Everyone must do it investment. Um, yeah, and then like I said, thinking about the engagement part, because people will, especially if you're a startup or a small business, people will have questions, and how are you going to answer them? So yeah, and a lot of the time, especially in Southern Africa, I mean, I think WhatsApp is it, right? And WhatsApp for business is super easy. So
You can easily link it to
you
your
can link
other
it.
Meta social profiles.
Yeah. So I think that that's the key ways to start off, and from there, you know, how you facilitate the sale. That also again will depend on your business. So are you doing e-commerce, or are you doing retail? Are you offering a service? I think that will really define how you're going to handle the sales piece.
So you'd say strategy for small businesses, you can follow a little bit of a cookie cutter approach at the start. Make sure you have your checklist items.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that you can, those are the checklist items, but then I think strategy always starts with diagnose. So, you know, when you're thinking on a larger sense of like, what do I actually have to do? So you look at, okay, you are a restaurant, you're selling fried chicken. What's the problem you need to that you have to solve? You have to get people to the store. You know, then you create the strategy to get them people to do that, and then you measure like how well it's working, and you've got to think about as you implement it how you're going to measure it, and then because you're not always right the first time, and usually always room for improvement, and also once you're actually engaging with customers, you're getting their feedback, so it's like a cycle. Then you'll slightly change it, then you'll diagnose a new problem. Okay, we're managing to get them to the store, but it's the wrong type of person. You know, like we're getting vegetarian. So how do we how do we solve the new problem and strategize, and how do we measure the success of that? And I think that never really changes. Diagnose, strategize, measure, iterate, da da da. It's ongoing.
Now, what would you say are some useful tools and platforms for small business owners to get started with, just in general, like strategy wise, operations, that sort of thing? Like, what would be the toolkit from a strategy point of view?
I mean, like the things that I use is I love Notion. It just helps me organize my ideas, because even with my own business, I have lots of ideas a lot of the time, and you know they can be really scattered. I've also, you know, you've got your different clients or your different projects that you're working on, and you need to know where they are in some kind of system. Are they with the client in review, or you know, have I not started them? And it also has great AI features. It can transcribe meetings and then pull that into Notion. So I find that a good a good project management tool that I use both for my life and for my work. So I'm a fan. It's very flexible. You can have Kanban boards and move things along.
Mm.
You can also have checklists. You can have, yeah, like it's really flexible. So I've definitely come to really appreciate that, just as a place to store information and track it. I'm also a huge Google Notebook LLM fan. I like the fact that you can, you know, for small business owners, you're going to get tons of things to read. Or let's say you're doing marketing strategy and you've managed to find a whole lot of, you know, uh, like let's use the science example. You found a whole lot of papers on how to market to scientists, but you didn't have time to read all of them. You can upload those to Notebook LLM, say, give me the key points on how you market to scientists, and it'll pump that out. You know, you can listen to it as a podcast even while you're commuting. So it saves you time. It's really good at summarizing, and it doesn't hallucinate. So for me, that's also magic. and to compare things. So, sometimes like I'll take certain strategies, like say I've got I mean, I suppose now this isn't really for small businesses. This is more for what I do, where I take different strategies and I compare them and I say, or different reports, let's say, maybe this is more for small business owners. It's like if you've got data from 1 month of your sales, you've got data from another month, and you want to compare differences, you can say, compare these two things and find what has changed. So it's really good for data analysis as well. And like I said, it doesn't hallucinate because it only works with
That one
the
piece of
sources you give
information.
it. Yeah,
Yeah.
so a definite win. And even you could say to it, um, like let's say you were now a small business owner and you wanted to launch a website and you had a whole lot of websites that you liked. You could give all of those websites to Notebook, and you could also like Google what are the key things we would need to brief a website designer or website developer on, um, for my idea. You get that, put all of that in a notebook, and then say, based on these best practice references and this guideline for how I brief a developer, come out with the brief for the website I want. And so that helps you kind of
Bridge that communication gap.
yeah, because a lot of the time when you're a small business owner, you have to deal with people and you don't really know that they require a specific way to be briefed. So it helps you figure out what you don't know.
Yeah, because as an entrepreneur, the first few
You're doing it all.
days, everything is new.
Everything's new, but yeah, luckily these tools are really great. Yeah, that you can find these things and synthesize it all quickly.
When I started Wolfpack, I was capitalizing on the full Zoho suite. I mean, I
Mm,
used Zoho for everything. And yeah, also a lot of chat GPT and a lot of other AI tools. Touching on AI now, it's always a very interesting buzzword and topic. How do
mm.
you feel about AI from a strategic point of view? Is it something that should be included in strategies going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think you can't avoid it. I think we're going to use it, and it's so powerful. But I think you also have to be aware of the weaknesses that it has. So I think again, no matter how you use it, I think that there's a danger that people jump to tactics with it. So it's like, come up with 5 campaign ideas for me to sell X, and it'll give you some creative ideas, but like, are they really rooted in data? Are they really rooted in uh, you know more deeply thinking about the brand?
You
So
also mentioned that the more experienced you've become, the more strategy has become a sort of intuition,
mhm.
and AI can't replicate that sort of intuition.
No, so yeah, sometimes you have people on there, they say, oh, but I can just do the strategy with ChatGPT or something. And I'm like, go for it. Because if the input is only as good as the output, so you have to know what to feed these AI platforms to get the right strategy out. And a lot of the times, even now when I do stuff, some of the outputs I'm like, no man, that ain't right. So you're still shaping it, it's saving you a bit of time. It's a nice as a sounding board to bump ideas off of. And sometimes you're alone and you're doing strategy and you're like, oh, I've got these 5 ideas, but like, which is actually the best? And then AI platforms are great. You can say, these are the 5 ideas, this is the brand, rank them based on these criteria. And that's a really good way to get feedback. So I think it definitely, you have to think of AI, but I think as you build a strategy, and especially like we're talking about how you're going to show up in ChatGPT search results, or like how are you going to use it for your content creation in a classy way, or there's all these kind of questions that you have to think about. But at the end of the day, people can get drawn to like the shiny objects of it all. And the like what I was saying earlier about the strategic process never changes. It's like, do the research, get the data, diagnose the problem, form the strategy for get to A to B, figure out how to
Mm.
measure that, iterate, and you're back at the start. That won't change regardless of AI. AI can
Yeah,
help you
yeah,
and at
I
any of
can
those
speed that
points,
up a bit.
and it
So
can speed that up, but that you're still gonna have to guide that process.
yeah, so I've often heard that AI will in future potentially replace agencies and replace creatives. So, what is your thought of the changing AI landscape and the new role that agencies will have to step into in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think that that's a real thing because if you, what I see as the pattern, well, not what I see, what I've read as the pattern, and I believe it, is that AI just really democratizes everything. So, whereas once, only designers could achieve certain things, or only copywriters could write in a certain way, or only developers could do X, Y, and Z, it brings that to the masses, and we've seen this before in human history, like at one point only certain people could
Take
go
photos.
take photos or whatever. So we go through this, and I do think that what will happen with agencies, rather than being the people who own these specialized skills, it'll be more about like how do we actually enable the people that who are our clients. So they're going to be using all of these tools, but we will still have the taste level, the experience to know what is a good design, what is good copy, etc. So it's more about teaching people how to use the tools, helping them with the imagination of what is possible, guiding them. So I see it as that rather than we're the service provider, they give us a brief, we give something back,
Mm,
that it's going to become more like they're doing a lot more of the creating and we're guiding them through that process. So I
mm.
think it's going to change that dynamic.
I also personally feel that agencies will be forced to do more and more authentic type of content. So
100%.
people will need to be more behind cameras and things like this, where
Yeah.
me and you are having a chat. Yeah, you can have two AI specialists have a chat nowadays. You can write a document and AI can podcast it. But I mean, yeah.
And it's also, like I think that's also the thing. I definitely think that there will also be this backlash where we'll crave human things. So I think I was saying to you the other day, like I got this magazine in the mail, and it was like beautifully bound, and I unwrapped it, and it was just this really like, when last did I open a magazine? When last did I get mail? And that it was such a like a human experience that it like it's so unforgettable to me. And I think that will also be a shift. How do we create stuff that AI can't make, because there'll be just more and more content. And so to stand out, the stuff that like AI couldn't do suddenly becomes more special. It's like the same as, now everyone can take everyone can take photos and videos on their phone, but it's still only really good photographers who can take like incredible stuff. So, the skill still matters, and it's how to be creative with the stuff. So it's also like who is good at creating AI images. But I do think that that human thing, like how will we do, what does in-person marketing look like? What is, a lot of these things, the return to print, I think we'll
Mm,
crave that.
yeah. Wow, that's very insightful. How do you feel about the strategist role as the custodian of culture and showcasing personality and humanness
Well, that's the thing, and
in this age of AI?
I think that's another huge role that the strategist plays, because before, like we're talking about, it's much more about, channel strategy and da da da. And I think AI will be able to take care of that. But what I don't think it can understand as much as like, what is the personality of this business? How do we, because that's really also where you hit the customer in the heart, is like with that type of thing. And I think that strategists will have to play that role more. Or also, if you're advertising in Namibia to a specific group of people who live in a specific town, what do they find funny? What moves them? Who are their local heroes? And that's like that personality piece or that local piece. I think that's going to become more important. Because AI doesn't know that stuff.
Yeah, there's so many brands that execute this level of personality almost of the
Yeah,
brand in their campaigns, and that couldn't be replicated by AI. Like the one that comes to mind is like a Nando's ad. It's truly Mzansi.
yeah,
It's truly South African, and people in that context they just feel that bond with the brand because of how they do their ads. Do you
yeah.
think AI will be able to do that one day, or do you think that is the human element?
Gosh, I don't know. I mean, maybe there's some sci-fi future where AI is, you know, surveilling us at every turn, and then it starts to understand our culturally nuanced sense of humor. But jeepers, I kind of hope that's not the case.
That would be very
Uh,
crazy.
Crazy, yeah. Very Big Brother is watching.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. So to wrap up, looking ahead, I want to just briefly touch upon trends as a strategist. So there's so many trends out there. There's AI, there's social media trends, there's new forms of advertising. How do you go about trends as a strategist?
yeah. Again, I think it depends what industry or what vertical you're in to understand what trends matter. But I mean, I think there's just a degree of having your antenna out there, right? Like I've done a lot of influencer marketing, and so much of that depends on trends and how people interpret the trends. And yeah, I think, to me, a lot of the cool trends start on TikTok. And I think if you if you spend your time there and you see in different with different groups what is trending, like you see what they find funny, you see what's going viral. I think that's definitely one way to do it.
Yeah, I think it was Jessica that once told me to create good content, you have to have consumed a lot of content to know what's good. So if
Exactly.
you can consume a lot of content, chances are you'll be able to eventually create good content as well.
Yeah, but the other trend that I see, because we were talking about this whole ask engine optimization, is like I think that a trend that it's starting to take off now in Europe is people are like gearing up their websites for this whole how do we appear in ChatGPT search results. And I'm gonna say some stuff, I don't know what all of it means, but it's the it's what I've gathered is like we used to make websites, have like a header and then content blocks, and the more content that we had the better,
Yes.
because we wanted to
With
make it
all those
the
keywords, meta
keywords
tags.
and SEO rich. And actually now it's kind of like the inverse of that. So now it's actually you need like a headless website that's much more modular, and because AI prefers that there's just like modular blocks that again answer kind of questions, and there's also less content because that kind of can confuse AI. Whereas so if you make it much more streamlined and make it very clear, like what are the FAQs, what is this thing about, and just make that very minimal, but make it the same everywhere it appears. So your website content must be completely consistent to your social media, profiles,
Mm.
and because if that matches up, it helps AI. It sees that as being much
Yeah.
more authoritative. So it's kind of, I think that's like definitely a trend that I've seen at happening in Europe, which I feel like it'll come here when we
Yeah.
start going like, uh-oh, people are not Googling anymore. They're
No, I mean,
ChatGPTing.
we got into the into that exact same scenario about 2 months ago. A new client emailed me. We set up a meeting. Asked them, "How did you hear about Wolfpack?" Said, "No, I put into ChatGPT what's the best SME for what's the best marketing agency for SMEs." And then Wolfpack was number one.
Boom.
So
Yeah.
it's definitely already here.
Yeah.
One thing that I did also learn about the AI search engine optimization is
Yeah.
that you need to understand where AI often gets its data from.
Mm,
And
back
with
to Reddit.
with
Yeah.
ChatGPT, they saw that ChatGPT often pulled from Bing and not from
Mm,
Google.
mm,
So now it's not just I'm SEO optimized for Google. No, you need
mm,
to make sure you're SEO optimized for all your search engines, and you need to also feature multi-platform content. It's no longer just I have a website. Yeah, if they call you by name on the AI platform, then the AI
mm,
will immediately run to your website.
mm,
But if they're asking for, what's the best, AI often goes and pulls from top 10 lists, and AI
mm,
goes and pulls from this and that and looks for keywords across multiple platforms.
mm.
So,
And like you spoke about Reddit earlier.
yeah,
They also, I can't remember if it's ChatGPT that bought Reddit or bought, but they either ChatGPT or Gemini, one of them actually bought access, like almost bought Reddit out
yeah, to
basically,
crawl.
so that they could get those user generated answers to those questions, because that's really that's mirrors more how people discuss, like, this business is good or this is bad, because what businesses put out about themselves is obviously marketing. It's not
Yeah.
necessarily, so to get closer to the truth, they actually bought access to, like, to Reddit's database, because it's a huge database of information. So again, that's one, you want to appear in Reddit, like, we never really thought about that before. Like, actually you should engage there, like you were saying, with the developers, but actually we should,
Yeah, I mean the same with Elon Musk's Grok.
Grok.
So Grok crawls X,
Yeah,
and X is the old Twitter where all the conversation is happening, all the real
yeah,
time.
yeah,
As politics happen, it's being talked about. As news happens, it's being tweeted or X'd. I don't know what they call it
yeah,
nowadays, but yeah.
yeah.
So
That kind of changes how you think about it. Yeah.
exactly. So
Mm,
AI optimize search engine optimization is going to be a whole different ball game, and it's like that thing where we mentioned at the start. If you're a small business owner, you're not just going to you have to create content. Like
mm,
it's just that imperative is that you have to create content and you have to have your brand out there as
mm.
much as possible across platforms.
And I think it's funny because the other thing that I then hear clients say is, oh, but then should I stop using Google Ads now? Because, and I'm like, no, you need to actually make the most of this window while Google Ads still matter, because they can still drive traffic to your website, but use them in a way that you can try and get customer testimonials or something. So if you've got
Mm,
like display ads or YouTube ads or whatever, how can you do that to now capture the first party data? So use the Google Ads while you can, but then you really want to have the focus be like, how can you capture their email address or their phone number? Because
mm.
that data you will always own.
The
Even,
platform can't decide one day you violated this, we shut you
exactly,
down.
exactly. So while you've still got that, I would say use it, but be tactical about it. How can you generate reviews? How can you capture first party data? Yeah.
Well, Stephen, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
Thanks for making time and joining us on this podcast.
I've loved it. We didn't even fight about anything.
Yeah, next time
Next
we can
time we'll
have a
make it
Zoom call.
spicy. Yes.
Okay,
Awesome. Thank you so
awesome.
much.
Thanks.
Cool.